under this traveling and training on the public works, yeah, I don't think that's enough money. Not the way all these schools and stuff we have going on the public works. Is it 5,000?
Well, that's, I mean, if you look at the history of what's been spent in that department, that's adequate. You know, as always, Mr. Smith, if something comes up where there's a training issue that they need to go to and you know, everybody approves it, we can transfer or amend the budget to allow that. These are, you know, these are, like I said earlier, guidelines based on prior activity and trends and departmental requests for changes.
Travel now, especially, as Mr. Smith alluded to, in some of these divisions, no water and certainly sanitation in the street. It's no longer something you consider as something you may want to consider doing. They're required, right? Like mosquito, I know they have to take tests.
But a lot of the travel and training that a lot of these departments citywide go to are local in the state, and they're for one day, and a lot of them are at no cost through other governmental agencies. So while they go to a lot of training things, they don't necessarily cost a lot of money.
No, Mayor,
Yes.
and Mr. reason why I'm saying that, I looked at Baton Rouge, some of these other cities, with the new waste department, the waste trucks, they have these garbage cans, these garbage disposal now, and one man go out there and the little lift hit it, and we got all these new subdivisions. That sometimes if we start implementing the program, we get these guys to go train, we can maybe get one of these, and you know, we got like Tennyson, we got these new subdivisions.
Every year we talk about this.
We can roll that thing out there, and we can go and send them somewhere and let the guys train, and we can start doing these pilot programs with these new subdivisions that we have. And
link something back. We can get some information back. Definitely looking at it.
Well, if memory serves me right, we can't, those machines in the older parts of town, we're still gonna have to stick to what we're doing. Yeah. No matter what. So, we're talking about new subdivisions that are taken. I think it would be more efficient.
I remember this coming out when I was a kid.
And so, yeah, it'd be a lot more
New
efficient.
subdivision, you go out there, you got the trucks, and one man, he goes like
One
my
man
dog's
going
out.
out.
He just come there and scoop it up, throw it like that.
Do you have enough houses do you have enough houses to justify that?
Oh, yeah. We got subdivisions going.
We got new
Let the judge administration, we're coming back with a recommendation on that. So we do, yeah. That's a good point. Well,
Mr. Reagan, he's saying if you have one, they'll ought to make sure the cost benefits not lost by having two different.
okay.
Page 64, the traffic department.
That's a reduction.
Capital, mostly through capital. The other sections are just normal changes.
Okay. I'm not gonna fiddle with that.
Page 67 is the maintenance of public buildings department. We did add as I mentioned earlier, mechanical systems tech was added after this document was prepared. It's on that sheet that you have. This one. And you know, we've added a lot of actually this other sheet, that one underneath that. Right. We've added some public buildings, a new customer service building, and various other buildings. So our building services department is stretched thin.
Yes, sir.
Roll on. Let's go.
Page 70, well, the next few pages, page 71 is the Broadway Resource Center budget. It's the same as in prior years, or the same as last year.
Okay.
Martin Center on page 74, and requesting the same as prior year. Motor pool in page 77. There's an increase.
205. Two and some change, a little less than 2. That's a big vehicle or something, right?
Well, there's a change in capital, but there's also a little change in the salaries. There's no additional personnel, so
Full-time, part-time with full-time.
What are we doing, machinery and equipment?
We're getting a record truck, sir.
Okay, that's good.
What's the rent?
Record trucks are expensive.
well, from time to time in some departments, we have to
Pull it up.
rent equipment if something's down, and we never, it's usually a struggle to find the line item.
Oh, any questions?
Roll on.
Page 80 is the recreation facilities maintenance, which is maintenance of ballparks and other city parks.
Let me say something about that. I've been concerned, I mentioned a little bit when the director and the mayor was a little bit Friday on the budget about the maintenance of the ballparks. I recognize that Mr. Rachel and certainly his support team doing all they can. When we have a little rain, it impacts our ballpark at Johnny Dam. When we have convention, the tournaments coming in, certainly you want to give it all the attention you can. I asked this question last year, and he wanted the opportunity to look at and see if he could maintain the parks at the level that I think they should be maintained. I don't think, and I stand open to be contradicted on it, that it's still to the level where it should be. I think we ought to, where possible, the perfect example of a park and how it should look is Compton Park. I think they do a very good job there. I think they do a good job at Johnny Downs. I just think that when we get in the jam, that there'll be some folks that come to whether it's Cheatham Park, Franklin Hunter Park, and get the same level of service and care that is given at these other parks. I'm putting that out for discussion, and I'm asking that we put it in the budget to do some of those things. I certainly don't want to ignore, was it Harmon Park?
Harmon Park, Ellen Black
certainly
Park,
Charles Frederick
Enterprise
Smith
Park,
Park,
Charles Smith.
and various other parks that we have.
Since our conversation on Friday at our staff meeting on Monday, we discussed that that issue, and we're going to have the urban forester who prepared the bid documents that bid out the current ones that we have under contract, which I think is Compton Park and Franco Hunter Park, and there may be
Yes, and the community centers.
and the community centers, and expand those to include some other areas, including the ballparks on
Franklin
Masonic
Hunter Park, I
Drive.
don't think it's
And I
under
would like to say that
Franco
the
Hunter's
park
is
over there next to
I think last
the
year.
zoo is highly utilized by the schools when they come in and they visit the zoo. So, you know, we need to also pay a lot of attention.
Well, keep in mind too, this is not
City Park.
this is not a problem that just occurred. We talked about this 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So I want to think that because that's what I'm saying. There's not a cast spread. I think it's good that the attention's being focused now, quite frankly. I want to start commend administration.
We want to expand those agreements to allow us to utilize some contract folks.
Is Franco Hunter under contract? If not, we need to find out who's doing it.
Is Franco
I was about to
Oh, it's
say.
not.
Charles doing that one on Saturday.
Yeah.
So it's just the community centers, Miriam? That was it?
Pretty much community centers, right,
Okay.
in Compton Park.
For some reason, I thought Franco.
Because
And, God.
where do we stand at Bolton Avenue as far as like the equipment that's in there? Because I know it's dated, very dated.
You in the weight room again, Mr.?
It's David.
The equipment in there is, I know it's at least 6, 7 years old, and the treadmills weren't designed to last that long. And,
So one of those ladies on that treadmill, I understand.
we used to have 4, but then we got 2 now.
I wasn't there.
Crying.
But you know,
Why don't we come back? I know we're not gonna solve it, but
We gonna-
still making the budget on that, to see if we can do that. Make sure we have adequate equipment in there.
yeah.
We need to post some weight limits on some of the treadmills.
You talking about you figure we jumping in?
Yes.
Any other questions on recreation facilities management?
Letters tomorrow.
Not me. I wasn't there.
That's right. And true enough, I know we have a little less, what's less than 3 million now that we've appropriated for parks and recreation, but the city park, I think some attention Darren brings, given that, I keep talking about the horse rail. So all that's gonna be considered in beautification. I think Mr. Smith alluded to earlier today about some help with some of the capital as well, and talking with administration.
We are working on a comprehensive plan for all the city parks.
It's something else, I know it's not, like we're doing the SWAC tournament here, tennis tournament this year here. But it's a possibility that if we do it right and if we maybe add more tennis courts, I think 8 more tennis courts in City Park, that we might be able to secure this for a long time and at the same time gain the soccer tournaments also. But that's something that we might want to look at, kind of throwing it out to the administration, and we kind of look at doing that. Because if we can do this, then with the revenue from the taxes of folks coming in here to play tennis would more than likely kind of pay for itself over a period of time.
You went to an interesting accounting school. We're talking about a reallocation problem that
No,
could zap us for $4 billion a year.
We might.
8 tennis courts would be.
It ain't gonna be that much, man. We got the property. We own the property.
I don't know what the tennis court costs, but that's,
But we can, that's something to consider.
No, I agree.
You know,
I just think we need to be focused more time on getting through this reallocation world before we're talking about. We may have to cut recreation.
There may
which
be
we don't
tennis
wanna do.
courts at other facilities that we could
Maybe lease or.
enter into agreements
Yeah.
with that, instead of building our own.
But if there were
Yeah,
any
1 weekend a
project
year
to
or
go
whatever.
after, that's the thing to go after. Because that does produce dollars, like you said, economic development.
That's what happened to.
okay, anything else on parks and
Just a little scary.
recreation?
Somebody talking about taking $4 million from you.
There we go. We're talking about keeping the tennis court right now. Not really.
Page 83 is the animal shelter budget. We do have an addition on that.
Let's go back. The Beagle Club, is that back in operation?
I know Harold Miles
Harold
Park
Miles
is.
That's all I was
I was talking
saying.
about
It
it.
is.
Harold Miles Park is back in operations. We haven't completed for the Beagles Club. There's some drainage we're working on the street
There's some
before we
issues.
get that facility back up.
So what did we do at Harold Miles? I'm trying to remember. Was it a roof or something?
The roof and everything. We reopened. What happened, we closed it at one point because there was some construction going on at the air base and the bridge wasn't conducive for the two-way traffic. And we've done some renovations, and so it is open to the public right now, and it has already been leased.
Just in time for crawfish. See.
Yeah.
You might not, the Beagle Club has some spiders out there. You might want to be careful. They're about that big.
I understand.
Palm must be
Okay.
scary looking.
Yeah. Animal shelter?
Animal shelter budget, on the page of addition, since this document was prepared, there's the addition of, actually on that sheet, it's listed as an animal control officer, but I think that was supposed to be an animal control supervisor, and we put that on incorrectly, but we propose adding an animal control supervisor.
I remember the city graciously afforded the police bureau when I was on there the opportunity to use this animal shelter. I assume we're still taking in parish dogs, huh?
Yes, yes,
I
sir.
want to make sure. I wanna make sure. We use some of that 4% for that? I mean, some of that 4
Well,
million?
absolutely, it's out of the general fund, so that is directly affected.
Okay.
Yep.
They're also on the sheet of additions and changes under the capital projects, the animal shelter improvements, through a change in priority from what we had in this document, Jim Ligon proposed that we add back the animal shelter improvements, and I'm not sure what exactly corresponding cuts were made by him, but as you can see, the $397,700 is added back in.
And the veterinarian, what we discussing on that?
New building?
There was some discussion as to, I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but we actually had a discussion in the administrative budget hearings about whether the city should hire its own veterinarian or not. Because we have veterinarian expenses in the police department, the zoo, and the animal shelter. And it was pretty close as to whether our expenses in all those departments together were enough to hire one or not, and then whether that person could actually be in all those places at the same time.
What would the gain be?
Well, the gain would be having someone.
No, I mean, really and truly, when you look at the.
Right.
What would the gain?
And then you run the risk of having to have a contract person anyway if your veterinarian can be in two places at the same time.
Insurance, malpractice insurance, everything else, I mean. Okay.
So we chose to not do that at this time.
Okay.
While we're while the public works folks are here, you're gonna do the bus and sanitation and zoo.
Let's go there.
If you'll go to the section 7 enterprise funds. Actually towards the
About 63,
page 63.
763?
Yes, section 7, page 63.
Tesla would do normal.
Is the sanitation department budget.
Me, we're on 63. On the sanitation, I noticed that we are, and that we're capturing some of the results of the adjustment in salary, which I think is a good thing. They talk about woefully underpaid, and I think this administration recognized that it's still probably not where they ought to be. They're focusing where they should be as compared to last year. Again, we're waiting on the pay plan. We'll see where we're at. But folks realize what they go through to collect what they collect on pay period. I think we have a different attitude about them when we tell them back in those trucks.
Yes, sir. I agree, and the new pay plan somewhat addresses that. However, it's not, or the proposed new pay plan that we saw, we haven't seen the final result. It addressed that. It's pending, of course, as we discussed.
Where is it? What you talking about, the pay plan?
The consultant has not delivered it, I don't think. The consultant has
I
delivered.
got a draft this morning that's supposed to be the final draft, but we requested some things be looked at, and from what I can tell, they haven't been changed. And I will have to get back with the consultant and with civil service on making a couple of changes.
And I owe an apology to them too. I said it wouldn't be ready in July. I didn't know they meant 08.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what they meant.
Expensive too.
I
can steal them on the price.
I would point out that in the middle of page 63 shows the transfer from the general fund to cover expenses in excess of revenues in the sanitation department. And that's budgeted to be $1,385,000 this year.
Garbage bags.
You know, we also, you can see the charges for garbage bags of $20,000. And on page 66, the cost for garbage bags is $146,000. Go ahead, page 66 is the detail of expenses, and page 67 for the sanitation department.
I'm looking at fuel cost.
Diesel $4.
We budgeted gas and oil at the amount that we adjusted to make a budget amendment, so we're budgeting, we hope to be our actual for this year, for next year. We have capital expenditures about the same as prior year.
Under our vehicles for that respective area, do we do anything so far as with grants to offset costs? I know a lot of cities, based on purchases and fleets, other vehicles, utilize grant monies to different entities so far as grants are concerned. Is there anything that we do?
Well, we apply for and receive numerous grants in many departments all year long. But to my knowledge, we haven't received a grant for purchase of sanitation vehicles in the last few years.
And you know, for years, I know we utilize and we're looking at grants in a lot of different departments. I think that's one of the things Mr. Marsh has talked about over the last few years is that a grant writer. I don't know whether this administration eventually will look at that, but I think it needs to come to some point to save the city a lot of money. You know, we need to.
We have a grant writer, Mr. Johnson, and he's probably, we're about to announce two big grants in several hundreds of thousands of dollars in the next few weeks. We apply for a lot of grants. They're competitive most of the time, and so you're applying with others, and you win some and you lose some. I'm not sure about a grant for
sanitation for
vehicles, but we have some that have come out, and we were asked to hold off, I guess, from an announcement standpoint. When you have some of the other players involved, they have to complete certain items before they do. But we have a very successful grant writing group right now, and I think you'll be pleased when you see some of the numbers that they produce. We get a lot of smaller grants, and we're seeing a trend of a lot more of that, $5,000, $10,000, and $15,000 grants. Police have their own grant writing they've done for years and have been fairly successful. But you're not seeing grants and even earmarks at the federal level and all those things happen in the several $100,000 to $1 million range. You see a lot more very specific surgical type grants that you apply for, and they're smaller numbers, so it's kind of a volume game at this point.
Yeah, and I do applaud the police department because I know they've done an outstanding job of working toward grants in those respective areas. But you know, I just wanted to mention that to the group.
Let's go.
Any other questions, sanitation department? If not, we'll go to the zoo on page 69. There's a recap of the budgeted zoo revenues. We budgeted $175,000 from the Department of Culture and Recreation at the state level, $2.4 million from the general fund, and gate revenue of $249,000 for a total of $2.8 million.
That's big dollars to run the zoo.
It is.
We use that tax money for that.
Yeah.
That's funded 100% from the general fund, which that tax goes straight into that.
Is that just for Alexandrians?
And I think it's enjoyed by folks from many parishes, in addition to Rapides Parish.
Considered, Jack Hanna said it's one of the fine zoos of its size in the world that he's seen. He's consistently said that year after year.
Really?
And it's the most recognized landmark or item of interest about the city and region.
Definitely the most frequent.
We have added we've added a assistant zoo director to this budget. That's the only position, no. And a administrative assistant.
Dave, can we talk just for a second about, since it is the year of the zoo, Roosevelt and I talk about this often, there's a lot of things that we want to do zoo-wise and when we come back, but in your budgets, all of you know, but for the benefit of the public, in case somebody gets a copy on section 7.70, page 70, the zoo has 12 to 15 events per year. They care for 650 animals daily. They maintain 25 to 26 different buildings. They maintain 33 acres. Walkable miles there, I think, are 4.5. Parking lot spaces are 292. We probably could use some help there. We have been talking about, Rick Renton mentioned it a few weeks back. We've been having some meetings about trying to create a corridor in that area, maybe with children's museum activities, maybe even try to entice the museum to locate in there and make that a children's corridor. I think there's one place of business that doesn't quite fit children's items that I guess we'd have to talk to the folks about, but other than that, it's a great corridor. 165,000 annual visitors to the area and 300 educational programs. Statistics show that programming that has to do with zoo and interaction with animals for children creates one of the highest learning activity centers in the brain of anything. And those are the things that this zoo provides for those dollars that we spend. And it's consistently, people argue about golf courses and other things, but I have yet to meet anyone that has ever come and said, look, the zoo's a loss, you need to quit doing it. And so that would be directly affected, and that is perhaps, I guess, having a child who's 4 years old, and we go there almost every other weekend, means a lot to me right now. Maybe that's selfish, but the zoo's a pretty big deal to a lot of people and to a lot of kids. Special needs kids go there and probably get more out of it than anybody can imagine. And so when we talk about some of these tax issues, I just hope that folks realize that. We're going to get into it very specifically today, but it is a big deal. Roosevelt and I have talked in the past about at the retreat, what the year of the zoo means, and for me, it's kind of a three-part attack that we want to do. One was getting them the right budget money, and I think we've upped that money significantly this year. Number two is to look for grants and help them try to find those items, and we did that when we were all in Washington, which was some creative work because typically the federal government is not funding zoos, and so we're asking them to do some different things. And we have a third part that we're gonna talk about very soon, but it has to do with this corridor and bringing other things to partner with the zoo. And so we're taking it seriously. We have some rate adjustment issues that we are very frankly discussing, but on the other end of it, we don't want to raise prices to stop the very folks that you want to serve from going to the zoo. And Les tells me it should correspond nationwide. They say it should correspond to the cost of the movie. We're not going to do that. The cost of the movie is very expensive for families. We're not going to do nearly that. But there could be a rate adjustment here and there at $1 or so, or $2 for adults more, that might help offset it a little. But I think we all agree that it's not going to be self-sufficient and self-sustaining, and we're all okay with that. And we think it's a necessary service. But that service is paid for by the sales tax.
And I also want to add too that our zoo is accredited as well. We just got re-accredited, I think it was last month.
Always
which says a lot.
It's unusual for a city this size.
Les took all the recipes off the cages too.
But you know, at the same
We've been
time,
AZA since, Les has been doing it since
That's correct.
the whole time, so it's not like this is the first year. And for a zoo our size, it is a big deal.
and it's great for tourism also at the same time, when you get conventions and stuff that come in here. And it gives the family something to do while a parent is in a conference. You know, we got a zoo out there that the kids can go to. And it's the right piece for everybody. And I think
We give less accolades because we can't pay him, so don't say too much about it.
They want to raise.
One thing should be
He's a
checked.
cheap musician too.
They have a family membership, so to speak, they pay a certain figure. I think that should be addressed because, you know, it's too much money for nickel. I think you should increase the payments or do something to modify it out. And that's self-sustaining.
Well, they do a lot of events, so they have animal interaction nights, they have crawfish bowls, they have a lot of things, and I go to them, and sometimes there's not a lot of folks there, and it bums you out a little, because Lisa always says we have so much going on, and people say, well, what's there to do in Alexandria, and there's a community calendar full of things. That's the nature of any city, there's always gonna be some of that. People go to Lafayette to do something, and they could do something here, but we just gotta do a job of marketing our city.
And one of the things, in the piggyback on what the mayor said, over the next probably 5 months, we're gonna have probably the largest influx of people that's gonna come into the city from all these tournaments, baseball, softball, throughout this region. And I think we city is strongly supporting that. And we wanna make sure that when those people come to our city, they go to the zoo. They go to one of the best zoos that we have in the South in this region. And that's why I mentioned the print shop earlier. We want to make sure that they come spend that money, they leave that base here in our city, and also helps us with our revenues.
That's what we had hoped with the buses. If y'all remember, we had the trolley bus come and people, there was some criticism about, well, why would you do this? Or I think somebody called into a radio show and said, why are we doing that? We don't have tourism. Well, that's a surefire way not to have tourism. I'm not sure if I understand the comment, but the point was to buy some used buses, not the ones that would affect our transit money or anything else. And when you have special events, you might have these where you can use them. We're having the World Series, as Roosevelt just mentioned. You'd have these people in place that could come, and you have a route. We set up a specific route for during the times of the tourneys, and you drive, you can have folks that could access the zoo. It's certainly not going to lose us money, given, you know, if we're giving people these things to do and it attracts the tournament again. These tournaments, Mariel, they produce millions of dollars.
That's correct.
You're talking about 4 and 5 nights of people coming, up to 4,000 people here, 4 or 5 nights. The state lets us use a multiplier of $140 per person. So that's 4,000 times 4 times 140. That's, you know, those are big dollars. And we ought to be doing things to promote it. Anyway, excuse me.
Timekeeper.
I saw he had the cane on the golf show.
I know we have some additional divisions to deal with, so look at that.
That was for you, Les.
That actually is all, right?
That's right. I forgot to say, Ed Les is a great musician. That he is free service.
Let's go back to the general fund. Thank you, Miriam.
Thank you, sir, appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
The planning division is on page 86, section 2, page 86.
There's a plan.
And James is out, so do the best I can to answer any questions you have. There are no new positions in this
That is
department.
pretty flat. Any questions on the planning division?
No.
Okay, Harris spoke for everybody, so next.
Community development, page 89, is a fairly, it's about the same as prior year. Section 2, page 89. Any questions on community services, Brenda Ray's department?
No.
Page 91, page 92, I'm sorry, is the engineering department budget. It's up a little bit. No new positions were added in that department.
How many unfilled?
I'm not sure exactly how many are unfilled.
We have almost everything filled, particularly as far as engineers go, in that division.
Okay.
We did a change of position. We have,
The city engineer, we just, that salary.
change between an administrative secretary and administrative assistant. Added an administrative assistant and lead administrative secretary.
Last year, went from 81 to 93. The city
What's
engineer,
it?
city engineer's salary. That's what we made the adjustment.
Yeah.
From the old,
Right. But some of those positions, the reason for the increase, some of those in salaries is some of those positions were only filled for part of the year. So we reduced in the final budget column, reduced for the attrition that we took from there. If you look between the adopted budget last year, 725, and the administrative approved budget this year, 748, there's only about a $20,000, $23,000 difference. Total salaries column.
Okay, moving along.
Urban forestry, page 95. There's an addition of an inmate labor crew, 45,000, contract labor, to
Okay.
try to help with some of the maintenance. Any questions?
Well, I'm glad that you did do an increase in tree trucks. Kind of fell short.
that's all from my
Almost every
district.
year, yeah. But, yeah, we
Straight
did
down
do
your
it.
side.
Not very many trees on that.
Wetlands.
Page 98 is the building inspector department, that's moved, so nothing to see here.
I like that.
Next is the
We'll-
police
we'll
department.
double everything.
Double it. The police department budget is on page 101. There's no additions in personnel.
10% growth overall.
How are we doing on their positions? Then they lost some.
Like,
Picking back up.
Four open positions out of,
Getting back together now. We were down 10.
okay.
That includes them 5 or that's exclusive to those 5? So once we get those 5 out of the academy, we'll still have 4 of them.
any questions on the police department budget?
We get a lot more cooperative later in the day to get, so I can tell you that, Chief.
That's right.
I have one question for the chief.
Yes.
Chief, how's the communications bus working? The bus that you utilize when you go on site at large events, are y'all still utilizing that?
All we have.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but I wasn't gonna bring it up, but I'm gonna bring it up.
I had to bring it up. I want to
being
mention it.
nice.
We mention it every year.
You look at this is a Homeland Security grant to help do one in Baton Rouge. It's really a command center. I know we have something dealing with a tactical unit. Is that what you call it?
Yeah, we've got an armored personnel carrier.
Okay. But I do think down the line, we still need to get that unit, because the one in New Orleans and Baton Rouge is surveillance. It does 360 deal and help deter crime. In addition, that's a good recruiting too, so.
I wonder if we did a cooperative endeavor with the sheriff and the state police for the parish, we might be able to do something.
We're talking about the vehicle, the command center.
He's absolutely willing to do that right now. I mean, it's not a, in fact, we're trying to, see, Darren wants all his toys himself, so what we have to do is, we have to figure out what toys Darren has to have.
What did Darren want and what do we want?
And then we have to share with the sheriff the toys that we can share, and then Darren can have the toys he wants. And the men have been prioritizing that with us,
And we'll wait to see about the sheriff, the command center.
Which is why there's a
Well, I
budget.
think that-
I'm gonna tell you what Darren and I talked, what we need most, and I know y'all had thoughts about it before and didn't like it, because it looks good for us, in communities and all, but the armored vehicle, with, a different set than what we can share with, at first I thought, well, look, the marshals have one, it's in close proximity, we can get it. It's not up to the level that takes certain rounds. It's a tough subject to talk about for various reasons, but that is the #1 identified need from all of our special weapons and the administration as far as on the.
I don't think it's tough to talk about. I mean, it's here, it's been here, it's happened here.
Well, I know Charles has expressed before, you know, people don't like to think of a city that seems to be doing well as looking like you have tanks on the street, and it's not that. It's one of those things when you need it, you need it, and we need that.
Do we have to do?
There's also probably in the near future we need to talk about some robotic items that get expensive too. The sheriff tells me they're about to. I think the sheriff there was a grant that we both could have done. They ended up getting it, and I think the notion is that we would share a command center. And I know we would like to have our own, but the first piece and then the second thing, which would be some robotic items, if the sheriff is serious about it, I know they are, and they get it now, and we're able to use that, then that's fine. We can spend those kind of significant dollars somewhere else. These items are several $100,000 a piece, as you might imagine. The robotic devices that I've witnessed so far that we've used really are designed, they were more bomb designed items, but the truth is, gentlemen, and this is not something you like to hear, we have to be prepared for those things too in a city this size. And we probably are not prepared, and I think two chiefs can speak to it, for some of the explosive, literally explosive items that can happen in terms of a bomb readiness team and things of that nature. And I know people think that's in the movies and in big cities, but it's something that we have to be prepared for. If you guys want to speak to anything, feel free.
Well, there's no question that anything can happen at any time, and we've seen that over the years. You think this should never happen in Alexandria, and it does. So the buzzword throughout Homeland Security is be prepared to take care of your own. And that's what we need to do.
We have people that we're sending to federal schools now that have been through either 2 or 3 different classes on the bomb technicians in the schools and things like that. So we're getting our people qualified and certified to be able to move forward in that. It goes back to what the mayor said, the sheriff's department has a team, but they could be somewhere else. That's right. Kind of need our own, really.
That's what concerns me about, and that's beyond certainly you want to do this piece, but the command center, I'll use the last festival, for instance. We had a nursery festival. I think he had something at the Coliseum. So then it becomes which event with the sheriff work in conjunction with us with other vehicles. So down the line, once we take care of the immediate needs, I still think they ought to be on the back burner.
Oh, I think so too. They have a command center. They just don't. It doesn't have as many fancy bells and whistles as what they want. But
yes,
you're right.
I saw him pushing it up the hill. You call it a command center. I call it a former city bus.
It's like the Flintstones. You got to stick your legs. Aaron runs with it, but it's.
I helped pull him up there with that golf cart I was riding around. All right. Certainly, and that's what I'm saying. Of all departments, the ones coming up are the 2. Now, that's always been my position. Public safety certainly gets what it needs to do the jobs necessary, so I don't have a hard time.
And we need to be able to help the smaller communities around us.
That's
we talk about the negative sides of this tax discussion, but we ought to be able to help with the sheriff to provide services to every single area, Woodworth, Boyce, that need us in a time of crisis, and that calls for us spending the money that in Alexandria, but it's actually for the whole parish, and I think we're all mindful of that.
Any other questions? Police department?
The weed and seed, what you just pulled it out of this.
Well, no, the weed and seed, and there's probably somebody here who's going to speak.
Weed and seed is actually,
and I can't, but the funding
The weed and seed is a federal grant that came out of the federal government's coffers. It's just being administered to by the city. City fiscal office.
While we're talking about it, we received a letter from the federal government, and they are talking about, they actually indicated that we would have to pay back the grant even though we didn't give any money because we're the fiscal agent because of compliance issues. And we talked about this last time, and we said we were going to, keep moving forward and try to get these things corrected. But gentlemen, just because we're not paying the money, if we choose to be the fiscal agent, we're responsible for how the money's done. And we have repeatedly asked for certain things, and there's been some degree of maybe resistance about, well, what should be the city's role? We should be able to do this without the city. But this is the problem. If the city's uninvolved and now there's a problem with the U.S. attorney writing us, we're going to end up paying for it. And you gentlemen gave me some strong indicators of where you wanted to go in a year with it. And it doesn't seem like all of a sudden we passed those items and we didn't do it that way. And we need to address it.
So,
Are you familiar with that letter?
Yeah, I can tell you
Chief?
that I addressed the U.S. Attorney in Washington concerning that issue about
Donald
DEA and the USAO for Louisiana. I addressed that to them, and we have had their participation. We've had a DEA agent assigned to our office who works full-time with us on our narcotics problem.
so Chief, are we saying that money that for this fiscal year for the weed and seed, based on that letter, is there a loss of that revenue for weed and seed?
No. There's money that we've already given back.
Given back.
But
We lost in the sense that we could have had it funded each year. We lost a year, so we basically used the allocation we had to and stretched it out.
for the first year.
The way the feds work, gentlemen, is they don't, first of all, they don't like that. And second of all, as Ms. Jennings was discussing with me yesterday, what they tend to do is they let you make a bunch of mistakes and then they come hit you for all of them. And they go back to the first one, 5 years ago instead of, and that's her experience, and I trust Vaughn, and she has concerns, and that makes me have concerns.
All right, I know Mr. Fowler and Mr. Sill pushing the time right now, so let's move on.
Okay, page 105, fire and police civil service budget is the same as prior year, it's $16,000. Page 108 and 109 is the fire department budget. There is the addition of 2 fire training officers to the fire department. The only personnel changes. And other than that, there's not any other major changes, with the exception of an increase of $50,000 to the travel and training budget.
Come explain by line item, Mr. Chief, and your philosophy on the fire department as you justify your budget. Sit right there. It's only 50. I'm teasing you, but I told you, our fire team's a little bashful. I told him I'm going to make him on these, but
okay, this
he's done well.
I'm going to say something. I'm new. I need it. Thank you.
All right. I told him I was going to give him a hard time. All right. Anything else?
No. Any other questions on the fire department budget?
Is that all right, Chief?
Yes, sir.
I thought y'all sliced 2 positions out the other day. Man.
Yeah, they told me.
You got me when I was eating the clam chowder this afternoon. Potatoes.
In reference to the fire department,
Yes, sir.
how we coming with the fire study?
Well, if you look at how many years it was on the books here, and the fact that now it's about to go out and happen, I would say we're coming along pretty well. I think at this point, we've administratively, everything's been approved. It's out and going. There are probably a couple of things to do with regard to right-of-way issues, Mr. President. You don't want to. I guess you don't want to telegraph everything, so I think that they're finishing that up. But other than that, I think we're on track.
We've made some changes and prioritized the renovations to Station 4, and begun some design work on that, so.
The approach is to make us self-sustaining without District Number 2, the parish district. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. I mean, we have to make sure we can take care totally of our own, regardless of any redundancy we have, which just helps us if there's redundancy. But we have to make sure from our end the plan takes care of everything that we need to do. There'll be some changes. We've talked about if there's a change on Broadway that we now have a new notion about Charlford going.
I talked to him about it. He's open about it.
That we might, he is, that we might have a reuse for that station for a recreational item, so we have plumbing and things in place, that'd be a nice flip there. But the 28 corridor poses some interesting things about where you might locate one, and we're kind of looking into that now. Number 4, what's Masonic and number 4? Number 4, Mr. Marshall, we've approved to go ahead with now because we know it's staying, and it's a traditional type fire station that we're going ahead and putting money right now. We actually have already started beefing up number 4. It's in horrible shape. And so that's happening as we sit here right now. So really, we're actually, it's moving along.
It was actually big as a priority in the project. And also, the fire insurance rating audit is coming up in June, just to put you on notice.
In June. So far, the chief tells us the things we got not points for last time, we looked to be in better shape, but it could be new things, so we got to get on it.
Very elusive target.
Okay. Page 113 is the Civil Service Department budget. There's an addition on sheet. No, I'm sorry, it's already included in the budget, an additional personnel analyst. To coincide with implementation of the plan that the administration had commissioned Mr. Oxenhandler to do. I think he's presented, has that been presented to the council?
No.
No. It's been presented to the Civil Service Commission. But that is included, that additional position for an analyst is included in this budget.
And that analyst would fall under which area? Civil service?
Civil service. And I probably don't want to go into details of that at this meeting because of time. But,
Mr. Oxenhandler performed a comprehensive review of Act 390, both sections. We probably should have a meeting on it by itself. It's that serious, but we're asking y'all, this is the bottom line. It's justified. If we do this, y'all can solve what has eluded everybody for, you know how many years, I don't have to tell y'all. And I think that we can get something done.
any other questions? If not, we'll go to Human Resource Department on page 117. And we have also added a position in this department for our compliance with that plan. And that was a personnel analyst as well in the Human Resource Department. That's the only major change. A couple of small increases in operating accounts. That's the only major change. Any questions? Page 121 is the legal department. Yeah.
Yeah, have fun.
You're done, but there's going to be a special meeting just for personnel and that's all. So that's it. But it's a good thing.
That's what cut my neck down, right?
No, you'll be fine.
Just a peek.
Legal department budget, page 121, is basically the same. No changes to personnel. Any questions on legal?
Still heavy.
Community Services Department budget on page 125. There are a couple of changes I'd like to point out to this. The queuing on the red budget was reduced to 100,000 based on historical expenses. We had amended it, a major budget amendment this year, and we had originally budgeted that amount. Talking to Ms. Harris, we reduced that somewhat.
We're going to 100.
100,000.
Of which, for those folks listening, of which you get money back from gate receipts and a bunch of other things. So this is not, the city doesn't just pay 100,000.
That's correct, our gate receipts, and we also get sponsorships.
We also get sponsorships. We like, it should break even, we look for it to break.
Less than what it shows here.
Yes.
Yes.
And in addition to that, our gate receipts are in 30 to 40,000, and sponsorships 30 to 40,000.
So it's offset.
Right. Significant offsets to that.
Move on.
Special revenue funds. Unless anybody has questions on those, particularly, I'm going to skip over those. They don't entail any payroll or operational cost items.
2125 is the other half of the tax issues we're talking about, that whole other section that we just blew past.
Right, Mardi Gras.
That's all the programming that.
Okay. Yeah, look at it, yeah.
Those things obviously affect people from the whole central Louisiana area.
Mardi Gras certainly affects.
Debt service funds, I'll also, if there are no particular questions, skip that section. Just accounts for revenue coming into those funds that being expended to pay down debt, bond issue.
We just quit doing that.
We suspend all bonds.
We say a lot of things.
Section 5, page 1 is the risk management fund revenue section. And basically what we do in these funds is we take money from, or money is contributed from all of the other funds based on their historical share of expenses out of those funds, and then it's dispersed to pay claims. There's not a lot of, if no one has particular questions, that's about all that goes on. I gave an update at the last council meeting on our performance year to date on risk management claims. Was about the same as the prior year. Employee benefits fund.
I hope nobody heard what you said.
As was pointed out earlier, the employee benefits fund is where we account for our self-insured health insurance plan. Where we collect money from the employees and the departments and disperse it to pay claims. Due to good history in that fund, we've not had to increase premiums on employees, or there's no proposal to increase premiums on employees in the coming fiscal year.
You still got a nurse out there?
Yes, sir.
I know when Butch was here, we had like a wellness program. I mean, where people could go first and see what they, if they wanted to find out like the blood pressure or what.
Right. The city nurse is still, is located out at the city complex and can do those things. Contract, yes.
We've got a plan on the table to change some of it, to offer a lot of different things. If that's something you are interested in, it actually costs less.
It cut down on the health plan. It did, because they would test it if they had sugar or something.
That's it. We have a, we're gonna try to increase the participation, so I don't even think it would end up saving money. Right now, you're just paying a nurse to just.
It ought to be a requirement.
Well, you can't require them.
You can't.
No, sir.
But they understand the health insurance went down some. I mean, everybody was running to the emergency room. You remember? It was called inflation.
Okay. It was real popular, then the participation fell off. It was very costly.
Section 6 is a short recap of the 5-year capital. I know everybody's going to be interested in this. I hope you've taken some time and looked through it. What we tried to do was based on projects that were already underway, projects that were engineered and had no impediments for acquisition or environmental issues and things like that.
What page is it?
Section 6, page 1.
And Charles, that number, the 12.5 down on that, remember, we're doing another fast track with y'all today that corresponds, not totally, because there are other items in David's budget here, but you'll get the benefit of a meeting today on Fast Track 2 that'll color in all these little line items a lot more for you and tell you where they are.
The column to the far left is a budget carryover. That's amounts that were budgeted in prior years and have not been expended yet. The next column, 0809, is the proposed budget for this year. The carryover doesn't go away. The items in the 0809 column are additions to the carryover. So, as always, this list will change as priorities change, as engineering gets completed on one project or another, or if a land right-of-way or engineering or environmental issue becomes a problem in a particular project, it can move down the priority list. And funding things, we amend this budget regularly throughout the year. So if you look through here and you see a project or you don't see a project, just communicate that with us, and we'll, with the planning department, figure out what we need to do to change that priority, or explain to you why the priority is where it is.
One thing I mentioned, of course, we couldn't put in here because we'd have to probably get some cooperation from the Waterway Commission, is the restrooms on the amphitheater side the levee. I thought it was always interesting that we built a fine facility over there, and in order to use the restroom, you have to climb over the levee again. But I'm wondering if we can at least get something started.
And all we would need to do is get some engineering estimates so that we could and change priority of something else, And
He may not be able to do it, but maybe he can. But I just think that we're starting to use the facility more and more. It just makes good sense to me to go ahead and get that done.
I'm gonna contact you.
Those are the kind of things we need to hear from the councilman, what you're
Really thinking
They
of.
on board, John.
That's a good point. Well, we pay for portage, John.
Well, I think the Red River Waterway Commission I think that they're basically out there saying, if y'all want to partner, we're here, and nobody's, I won't say nobody, other places are partnering with them. I think they would be more than happy to talk about that, for sure.
Yeah, Mr. Bell,
They were happy to come and do the meeting they did here the other day and announce things, and they're just good folks. We ought to go do
Take
that.
advantage of the opportunity.
Yes, sir.
Okay, maybe we get something back at next council on that.
Are we moving forward with all the security measures we had previously talked about, by this administration and the council, at the different complexes in the city, so far as with cameras and other measures of security?
We are moving forward with several of them. I know if Muriel's still here, but at the administration building at the complex, they're implementing some security measures at the front door and at the gates. We're still continuing to implement things here at City Hall. We kind of had stalled on some of them because we had to bid out some of the devices we needed. That bid has been done, and now we can move forward with purchasing of those security items. So I think we're moving forward with a lot of that stuff.
What's the technology upgrade? Where will it be focused in what area?
A lot of the information technology upgrades are doing fiber optic connections between city buildings. We just got through with a piece that's about, I think it's roughly 5 miles. It ties the complex, the Public Works complex to City Hall and the light distribution building, but a lot of that is for communications upgrades.
We still can't take credit cards at the utility department.
We're working on that. We have an agreement in place. We have an agreement, but there's a convenience, there's an additional fee involved in that, and we'll just have to pass that fee along to the customers.
Mr. Marshall got quiet over there. I see 165. The Bolton Avenue Community Center. No, she didn't have any questions about that, did you?
That's running equipment.
Let's make sure.
Dave, on the ditch closure project, where is this located?
It's under the drainage.
It's gonna be on the drainage.
It's under the streets.
No, he said drainage. Did you say drainage?
Ditch closures.
Right on the next page.
But there's street repairs in the street department and. Where's the ditch closure?
I thought we had a. You put so much in this into, to the ditch.
Right, here it is. Residential ditch closure has $792,000 carry forward with $270,000 additional budget, so right at $1,060,000 in ditch closures. And just over $1 million in street overlay and panel replacement money.
Yeah, you got $1 million in ditch and $1 million in overlay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
Why they stopped on Walton Street? No.
Which, what are they doing?
Shenandoah.
Had to move out to Harris, 15,000. Where? On Walton Street.
Yeah, that was good.
That would be a question for the,
It's easy to roll it out.
you'd have to ask the planning department with that.
We're going to ask, I don't know what he did there.
On the Shenandoah,
Vertical channel.
Vertical
Yeah,
channel.
no, that's not the offense.
Probably, if you have questions on the individual progress of these, if you address them to the planning department, and we can, like I said, we can move things up and down, the priority list by budget amendments.
He'll be here when he's talking fast track.
Any other questions?
Any other questions on the capital section? Section 7 is the enterprise funds. Of course, our main enterprise fund is a utility fund. Page 1 and 2 is a detail of the revenue estimates for the utility fund by department. First section is the electric revenue. And I'd like to point out, I'm sure you all know, the main item that we bill for in revenue, which is a pass-through, we don't mark it up at all, is fuel cost. You see, we expect that to be $41.5 million by the end of this year. So,
Why don't we just budget 35, just because,
it's actually gone down a little bit, so we're just trying to, there's an offsetting budget item for that in expense, so it's really, you see, it was 48.8 year before last.
I always wanted to be in city life and all of a sudden they threw that date out on it.
Any questions?
Any questions on the revenue and the utility fund? Would like to point out on page 2, the use of prior year fund balance is $4.5 million budgeted.
4 million.
4.6.
He won't take out me.
Page 4 is utility administration. Which kind of the catch-all for items that don't really belong in a particular department in the utility fund, like our audit fees, transfers out and into the utility fund. Any questions on that? Not
We up on our legal review?
Yes, sir.
We got 200,000 put in the utility assistance program, which I remind people will probably never be considered enough by folks, but we're the only ones really doing it. It's a pretty significant amount of money to aid those in need.
And we're still doing it through the Shepherd Center?
Yes, sir. You have your transfer to GF 5% that's capped by council ordinance, that's the 5.6. You have a debt service item that's roughly the same.
Do we have an informational brochure from our utility, I guess to get back to the print shop, division, here's where I'm going. So many times I get calls saying, I don't have any money. And do we have something to give indigent ratepayers to put in their hands with, and refer maybe to whether it's the Shepherd Center, whether it's for them to consider their churches, whether it's them to consider the Community Action Agency?
I don't know.
Yeah, there are a lot of agencies and people really just don't know that this is not the last stop. If you
Has to put it on shelf.
Is it maybe some little insert you can put in the utility bills, maybe one time every quarter? A little insert, maybe something from the print shop?
I guess Channel 4 would also be a good medium to say that we need something, where to go if you need assistance. Because,
I don't think we have anything that I don't think we currently have anything, but I think we should get something together. I know the people at the utility office let people know that once they get there and talk to them, they let them know that. But as far as something to hand out or something to put on the counter there they can pick up, we probably need to work on that. And if anyone from one of those agencies that provides a service like that is watching and hears this, I would hope they'd feel free to bring some of their documentation down to our office and put it out where people can pick it up.
you know, the Lord has been speaking to a lot of people lately because he told some of them to call me. These utility bills.
Well, we've been doing very good on getting up to date on some issues that have plagued us on our audit report, compliance issues in the past with disconnects and things like that, which tend to stimulate people to make phone calls.
I saw an article, speaking of, by Mr. Leonard Ford, our friend. He said that the mayor and the council need to do their jobs and they're letting people stay connected. And the fact of the matter, I talked to Leonard about it in the street about 2 weeks before the article came out, and told him what we had been doing to address those issues. I think he was talking specifically about the incubator, and well, that's exactly what we've been doing is bringing those things in line, but that was missing from the article. We actually have brought that in line, which was a problem, but I want to tell people why there's a difference, why you don't just go cut someone off. First of all, the incubator, by law, if someone's on a payment plan just like a resident, and they're meeting their payment plan, they don't get cut off. It just happens to be, of course, bigger dollars. If you're at home and you're 1,000 behind and you get on a payment plan and you meet all the specs, then you can stay connected. If you're the Central Louisiana Business Incubator, given what it does and the commitments we have to it, it's a sizable amount of money, yes, because it's a bigger bill we're talking about, a bigger space, but they were in compliance with their payment plan. The fact that they were that it was let go for several years and so forth, you know, I'm not going to get into the blame game of saying how that happened. We came in and decided to address and fix a problem. That problem will continue to be addressed tonight with the contract that's on the books for you to decide tonight how you want to go forward. We're clearing it and zeroing it out in one final point so that the public knows that we're not being derelict, the council or the mayor, in our duties. To go out and have cut them off at that point would have probably closed the doors, of course. We have a grant agreement that Mr. Giss can tell you. We have some $900,000. And so what I wish Mr. Ford had done was call and check into that, because had we gone and shut the doors of the incubator, the first thing that would have happened was we could potentially owe back $1 million. You gentlemen have had an investment way before I came on board in an incubator. There was a group of folks from LSU, Charlie D'Agostino, who's the best in the business about incubators. You found a need for one in this community. Regardless of criticisms or anything else, there is a need that no one questions that, and there's a great service it can provide if everything's firing right. And so I didn't feel like it was our place to recommend shutting the doors, and I certainly don't think any of you would want to shut the doors on something that you would lose money the next day. So you have $150,000 in issues that you would, in a bill that is an issue that we have on a corrective model and then correct to zero. And we've done that in less than a year. And that was what we thought was the right thing to do. We have LSUA. I know that the folks over there were concerned about being out in the press, and I'm talking about it now, but just get it out on the table and be transparent. $77,000. But there's a lot of value in that museum, so what do? We discover these problems. And for your benefit, gentlemen of the council, these are not being discovered by the media doing reporting and bringing it out. These are self-disclosed items from your administration. We're the ones who bring these to people's attention through our own auditing of services and fixing these items. So this isn't someone got you and then we're scrambling around. We're bringing this out. And sometimes I think the articles written in the way things are cast in the news, it's as if there's some activity going on that's questionable. That's not it at all. These are all things that we're auditing ourselves, like we promised you, and bringing out. But we're not just bringing them out and saying, here's the dirty laundry. We're offering you multiple opportunities, different ways to fix it. You're the policymakers, and you get to decide one of those today. Or you can send it back and say you want to look at it differently. That's where we are.
What you're saying is there's a difference between the truth and the whole truth.
I'm saying that sometimes what one might read and what is in reality the case are yes, quite different.
But Mayor, but this council, and I'm saying you, the mayor, and I, what we've done, we ranked like 11th or 12th in the state and started a business. And Alexandria wasn't doing anything to move in 2002. We were trying to move the city. So then we established it because everybody, we got Mr. Charles Epstein, and we were feeling our way to help. I mean, you bring people out of their homes and you put them in an incubator and you train them and you put them back out in business like Rick Brown, somebody, they're gonna start paying taxes. So I mean, we were bringing the museum over there. We know we need the museums. Then LSU said they wanted to come in. And that's where we went, and we were supposed to have, some kind of placement over there, and we were trying to, keep everything going. I think that's we're responsible, with some of those entities that we were responsible, and that's where we got into. We got into it with the air conditioning. Everybody knows, about that part. But what we were trying to do was make things work as we appropriate the 200,000, 400,000. We trying to keep our citizens afloat. We're trying to help them too. So
and programming has to be adjusted.
And you're gonna win, and you're gonna lose on something. So I mean, we're glad that now it's to a point that these things are working out.
I would welcome anybody to ask us, Mr. Smith, to produce the new model for the incubator that we work diligently to complete, and how it brings in line. I'm not saying the incubator can ever be self-sustaining, and I challenge anyone to find one that is. By design, they're not. But I would challenge you to look at what's been appropriated in the past and how it ramps down in the next 3 years, where we put the rents when you have anchor tenants versus the eggs that are being incubated. And the whole idea is if the incubator is doing its job and you account for that job, the people will see, and this is all attached to this proposal that we've sent. It shows that the economic development impact greatly outweighs those expenses. But I was in a catch-22. You had already invested enough where we had to look at it and say, okay, we can close the doors tomorrow. And that'll stop any bleeding, and people can't complain about that. But I would have taken your investment and thrown it away, and where we were on the continuum, on the scale of what to do, to me suggested fix the problem, make the commitment, let it ramp down, readjust the rates, get the right types of tenants in the incubator, and keep up with the promise you made, and also avoid having to pay back $900,000 to a grant that could have hit us. And somebody said, well, Jock, they never go after those clawbacks. Well, we got one with the weed and seed that they're saying they're gonna go. I'm not gonna be the guy that is the test case for whether they'll go back after the money. We're adding clawbacks to our tenants. So what we're having done to us, we're going to make sure the tenants are locked in. And if they leave early, if they leave the area, this is the notion of incubation. For every so many years they do it, that they're in the incubator, they have to stay in the area. I think we did it 1 to 2. So if someone leaves and we have to go after them and say, well, you're in breach of your agreement, that's how you make this work.
The mayor's passionate about that, and we appreciate the hard work. But as a preacher say on Sunday, as we close, as I close. something. Let me say this clearly though. It was a hit he shouldn't have taken out of council. It was the right thing to do, and I think you're adhering to your fiduciary responsibility to put the incubator on a track to pay its bills, and that's what you did. And you're developing a relationship, which we should have done, I understand, with universities in the process. So I think it's on track. It was a corrective action, and I commend the administration.
And then the point of the comments is because we can get out the whole truth here.
A lot of people,
Well, that is true. We wasn't.
a lot of people look at it, want to create a problem. They want to create a problem, and then we here, and we're trying to solve problems, like the incubator, like StarTech. I mean, look at, StarTech. We brought StarTech and everybody, and they pay us $15,000 a month. We made like $3 million.
That's why I know you're the good.
Yeah,
Okay, let's see if we can keep Mr. Fowler here. We already lost Mr. Silver.
Okay.
Big loss.
Page 13 is the customer service department. No additional personnel, no major changes. Nobody has any questions. Customer field service, page 17 is meter readers, cut on, cut off folks. No additions in personnel. Any questions?
Okay.
Information systems, we actually had a reduction of one person. We chose to reduce some computer operator positions and add a network technician. So dollar-wise, it's pretty much a wash. Any questions on that?
Sounds cool to me.
Page 23 is, as you can see, we're doubling the Director of Utility salary effective May 5th.
Not a day before.
See, I saving you money on it.
Yeah. You sound like a Geico commercial. Be careful.
Is that from you? Oh. Any questions on the Director of Utilities budget? Electric production. He had indicated an addition of assistant superintendent of electrical production, and would like to change that request to be a professional engineer instead of classified as a professional engineer instead of classified as assistant superintendent. That's the only change in that department.
What you call it?
Professional engineer.
Instead of
Assistant
assistant
superintendent. Right.
What's the number you can plug in there? Is that enough right there? 50,000?
It probably is not enough, but we'll get that down to you guys this week. All these changes on form. There shouldn't be much more than that for the minimum pay of a PE. May take more than that to hire them, but the pay plan is not going to talk for much more. Also, well, no, that's it. Page 29, electric distribution department, page 30 and 31 is the cost recap. No additional positions in that department. Any questions?
Scripture.
Yes,
So,
sir.
when we supposed to adopt this?
2 weeks.
I like that, like our president, get, like, you and Mr. Lawson, if not, you and Mr. Lawson get together with Ms. Pam, you know, and try to see some of these things we try to implement, that we can, if they have any idea about what they gonna do, we gonna have in the budget.
Right, well, we'll give
Some of
you,
these positions, I'm just saying, some of
You're
them,
right,
we can be
Jessica
close.
was in,
We, I mean, when we go in, we won't have to come back in and change everything in here.
I've been asking, you got a point well taken, Mr.
Yeah, I like to see you and Mr. Lawson to go and talk to her and then
Okay.
put up, you know, I guess that's what it is.
now, we do plan on leaving,
They're supposed to have the pay plan on the agenda for the Civil Service Commission meeting next Wednesday. I just talked to Pam when she was in here a few minutes ago, and they're supposed to have it finalized this week to be adopted by the commission on Wednesday, so.
which would mean that, by approving the budget, the council would,
But how would that affect?
no, that have to be said.
Take over public hearing.
Okay.
See, that's what I'm saying. By the time we get this with public hearing, and then we're gonna, as in the past, we've had some kind of disgruntled employees because they not, it's not gonna be, I think the council gonna need to look at it. Real close. We had to do that before, because some of it is unfair, it's unfair.
Well, Mr. Smith, we plan on leaving the budget accounts for the proposed pay plan implementation. Even though we can't actually implement it, on May 1st, we plan on leaving the budget as is. We're not gonna reduce the budget to not account for the pay plan and have to amend it immediately, after it's accepted to account for it. So we don't plan on doing that. But if, you know, if things change after the fact because of an employee issue with their position, I guess we will have to change that separately.
Well, Mr. Crutchfield too.
We have to have a check and balance system between us and the administration and with civil service.
If we assume that during the committee process of the Civil Service Commission, that anyone that wants to voice a question could raise it at the meeting, or it may not be passed on the same meeting